Hi. Hi, everyone. Hi, Noah.
Hi, Brooke.
Hello. Hello. Welcome back, everyone. So today we are so excited to have Jenn Perell with us. And Jenn was one of our coaches for Journey of Intrinsic Health. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know that that's how Noah and I met. So we're especially super excited to have her here. So Jenn's going to be speaking with us a, about kind of women's bodies and especially about just using the rhythms of nature to connect in with that and get us into a deeper sense of health. And then we also want to talk about Journey of Intrinsic Health because it was such a profound experience for all of us, and just kind of the things that we took from it and what Jenn can tell us on if you would want to enroll and go through the course. So Jenn, welcome so much to the podcast.
Hi, ladies. It's so nice to see you.
Yes, so nice to see you. So I want to start by just kind of getting a better understanding of your background. Like, I know just from doing the coaches journey that, well, one, that you are the director of coaches for Journey of Intrinsic Health, and just how you got to that place of being the coach, and like if and just into wellness and these sort of practices. Was it something that you've always felt drawn to, or did you have like sort of an aha moment, just kind of where you got to where you are now?
Yes, always drawn to it. I think I was like the littlest kid in the self-development section at the bookstore, like had the coloring books and whatnot. Um, but yeah, so always drawn to it. I got my undergrad in psychology and then a master's degree in holistic health education. And when I was in that course, I took a coaching program with Linda Bark called Whole Health Coaching, and went on. I was also a yoga teacher, and I took a yoga life coaching course. I've done the Chopra Center coaching. So just a lot of, yeah, I've always been intrigued by human behavior. I loved psychology, but I guess resisted just delving into people's past. I really enjoy moving people forward, and so that had me more drawn to the coaching side of things. And I think that answers your question.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, like, talking about moving people forward, I think that that's such like a gift of coaching, because I do think that there's so many things, like when just mainstream psychology and talk therapy and sort of stuff, it does like take this backwards approach. So
Mhm.
I think that speaks so much to the power of coaching. I do know you've mentioned that you are like a festival organizer.
Yeah, I
I
have a background in I produced events for quite some time, and mostly in the world of wellness and consciousness. So like did some music touring and worked with Deepak Chopra on an event called Sages and Scientists. And now that I'm primarily just coaching, I do the occasional festival where I'm an artist liaison, and it's a very chill role. Well, it's not when you're there, but meaning there's not a lot of pre or post work. It's just like in and out, and
being in
it's
there.
fun. It's just a way to stay in the vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. There's so much like energy there when you can connect in with.
There is. I love
Yeah.
music, so it's really
Yes.
the yeah,
Amazing.
stay up to date with the newest artists and yeah, stay in touch. It's fun.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then I know that you at one point did like a wise and curious initiative, or that you might still be, doing, but I love the idea of curiosity. And like, I think you've already somewhat gone into it with your first answer of just always being curious about human behavior and kind of like what makes people tick. But just where else do you feel that like curiosity is either like a part of your journey and or just how people can tap into that to become a part of like, their way of being, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason why I paired those together is because I think everyone has wisdom to share. And so just being curious all the time with whomever you're talking about or talking with or whatever you're talking about too. Just like there's always, I just find little gems of wisdom everywhere I go and with whomever I'm talking about, even the most unassuming. And so, yeah, just keeping an open mind and being interested and aware and paying attention. So often, everyone's walking around
Yeah.
Like in our own little bubbles and just so interestingly focused, but unfocused on what's going on in the actual world around them. So I think just staying awake, staying aware, and paying attention to the world around you can like inevitably leads to curiosity because there's always something new and beautiful and interesting happening if you're actually paying attention. And I think that so many opportunities get missed when we're solely focused on just the, well, focus is important, so I don't want to take away from that, but I guess I just want to say like also to just stay open. And the reason why, like I was saying, pairing wise and curious is because, yeah, I think there's wisdom all around us, but it comes from a deep curiosity. And I think that that's where, most of the wisdom keepers that I know, that's kind of the basis of who they are, is this desire to keep learning. And so I love
true.
and Wise is still in progress. It's going to be a deck and a book. It'll be coming soon, as will Cycles and Spirals, which is a course based on what we'll be talking about today. So,
yay.
Hopper.
Okay, good. That's good to know. No, and I think with just what resonated there too is when you're allowing yourself to be curious, like it's so easy for us also to kind of get our lenses in of how we see the world. And I think just with looking at how the world is today, and like there can seem to be a lot of like, you're either this way or you're that way, or like, you have either it's black and white is what it seems. And I think that like, if we can look at people and situations, and if we don't initially agree with them, just come with that intention of curiosity rather than like, you're wrong about this, or I don't really agree with you, then it's makes a huge, tremendous difference. So
more cohesion rather than division. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you talked about nature, which leads us to the following question is, we want to know more about, and if you can tell us more about the seasons, the moon, and our cycle. How do we correspond to that as women, and what it is exactly?
Yeah, so I mentioned a little about cycles and spirals. So everything we're going to talk about today is based on this incredible divine design of the woman's body and these the 4 distinct phases during our reproductive years that line up with the cycles of the earth and the moon. And so I'll just, I guess, dive into what that looks like. But actually, first I want to say that we have the general cycle of our lives, right? So there's like puberty and our reproductive years and peri-post and menopause. And so there's that larger cycle to look at as well. And so today I'm just right now I'll just be focusing on the reproductive years. So just kind of giving you that outline. So the 4 cycles are our follicular phase, ovulation, our luteal phase, and menstruation. So follicular phase, and I'm starting there, which is right after you bleed, is the beginning. So this is the key words would be to plan and begin. This is when the moon is waxing, and the season that it's represented by is spring. So I'm gonna tell you what moon cycle each part of our cycle mirrors, as well as the season that it mirrors. In your work life, because many women in our reproductive years, this is also the time when we're at this, stage of the world, we're working hard. During this time of our work lives as well, you want to be planning and initiating. You're doing new beginnings. So this is all about brainstorming and initiations. For yourself during this time of our phase, for self-care, this is when you want to try new things. So try a new workout class, go on an adventure, try something new. This is a time to hang out with friends or start a new project. Maybe go to an art exhibit that you haven't been to. So this is all like in that curiosity phase, like seeing new things, exploring. This is, planning, brainstorming, new beginnings. Okay. Then you go to ovulation. So this is when you're actually ovulating. And this is when we want to connect. So you want to get out there. This is the full moon. And it's represented by the season of summer. So you can picture summer. We're out there, we're in our bathing suits, we're out under the full sun. For work, this is a time to connect, communicate, collaborate, attract. So this is being out there, connecting and being visible. So this is when, you want to take your meetings. This is the time to be on podcasts. The self-care for this time is to do high intensity exercise. So this is when you take your HIIT classes, Tabata. This is when you're being social, you're having people over for dinner. A good time to go on a date night or go to a party or other social gathering. You're going to be feeling sexy during this time. Good time to make out or do your yoni aid practice. So this is like the very energetic, connected time of our cycle. And then we move into our luteal phase. So that's the waning quarter of the moon. So the moon is getting smaller. This is autumn and fall. The leaves are falling off of the trees. You can picture, no, to answer your question, the seasons, right? Like you can almost feel the rebirth about to happen. So this is, like death and dying time of the season. This is completion and focus. So this is for work, focus, details, finishing projects, putting in the work. This is a time when if there's stuff during the other time of the month that you've been needing to do, but you weren't willing to do it, some people will keep a luteal list. So this is like the time of the month to do the stuff that you didn't want to do during the other times of the month, because it might feel very natural to like clean your house, clean your closet, get the drawer that you've been trying to get cleaned up done. It's also a good time to curl up with a book and relax, spend time one-on-one. So this isn't when you're like going out to the dinner party necessarily, but you're having your one-on-one time with your friend. Go to yoga, meditate. So this is the kind of self-care you want to do during that phase. And then menstruation. So rest and reflect. This is represented by the new moon, so nearly no light, the dark time, winter. And this is the vibe is to rest and release. And this is the death or the time for rebirth. So this is when we are conserving our energy for spring and summer. Our workout during this time is just like walking and gentle yoga. This is rest, reflection, and evaluation. Your self-care during this time might be like writing a new moon intention list or taking a long bath, journaling, napping. Make space in your calendar so that you're not overscheduled. So this is not when you're setting your big meetings or necessarily like being out there in the world. And above all else, listen to your own body. But these are general rules of thumb that typically apply. Obviously, if you're like, I think about like athletes and it's like, but the marathon is going to be during that time. Okay, set yourself up. You're going to be fine. You can do it. But this is if you have the flexibility to create your life in a way that is honoring your cycles, you might find a lot more ease in it if you do so. That's kind of the summary.
So beautiful. Yeah, I feel that our culture has, has lost the emphasis on the women's cycle, because I know in ancient times that women lived with the moon, so gathering together and doing rituals and customs that help them live, by the natural cycles of their hormones. But now in modern times, we are no longer living according to this natural light, right? We flood our bodies with artificial lights and screens, and we don't even note our cycle anymore. Like so many of my friends have, IUDs, and they have, other birth controls. And I remember when I first started noticing my cycle, because I always did, I was always aware of my cycle. I still write on my phone, I have a little red dot and I say, period day 1. And this way I know, for me, hormones wise, if I'm grumpy, why am I feeling a certain way? Why do I need to go intrinsically? Oh, because I'm feeling that. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and actually, so our menstrual cycle runs on what's called the infradian rhythm, which is, most people have heard of the circadian rhythm, which is a 24-hour clock. And men's hormonal cycle runs on a circadian rhythm, so that 24-hour clock, and we live in a very patriarchal society, which totally discounts the infradian rhythm. which takes 28 days, which is the moon cycle runs on an infradian rhythm as well as the women's hormonal cycle. And so, yeah, just noticing they're both natural and both, make sense for different reasons. And, the sun, circadian rhythm. But yeah, we run on the infradian rhythm. So that's what you're pointing to here too. And so, so important. Yeah. To honor our bodies and understand why we're feeling the way we feel during certain times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it too. It's like when you can understand that, like you said about the marathon, that resonated so much, because it doesn't mean that everything has to fit perfectly into these like cycles of what you're doing in your life, but it's just that information can help inform like the energy that you're already kind of like naturally having. So how can you set yourself up for more success with maybe what does need to get done that might not match up with those cycles?
Yes, and help inform your training if you are training.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. Makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I love it.
So if us, as we remember going through the rest module and journey of intrinsic health, and remember you mentioned that an individual can alternate between intermittent fasting, which I think most of us are already doing, and grazing according to where we are in our cycle. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So, if you haven't been through the journey, you might not know what we're talking about with grazing and intermittent fasting. Those are some styles of eating that we recommend to create biodiversity in the timing of what you're eating and when you're eating. And as always, above all else, listen to your body. And I am not a doctor, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But what I suggest is that it is, or I guess what I'll say is what our bodies might suggest is that you typically need more food during your luteal phase. So after you bleed and before your period, when I was saying like more energy and all of that, you need a bit more extra protein and progesterone and a range of complex carbohydrates. So, after you bleed, this is a good time to fast because you don't need all of that. Your body naturally has all of that extra energy happening. So then once you've ovulated and before you bleed, that's when you need all of the extra protein and progesterone. And so during that time, it's not an ideal time to fast. So the best time to fast is typically after you bleed and before you ovulate. So during your follicular phase, because your energy is already high and you don't need as many calories in order to have that kind of energy. Does that make sense?
That's so great. Yeah.
And so what happens is, or what I've seen people is like they're trying to do intermittent fasting or fasting and they're like, it's so hard. And I've experienced that as well. Sometimes it's harder to fast than other times. And then other times it's actually like I forget about food. I don't need it or even think about it. And it's because the body generates its own energy. And so I'm not taking, any disordered eating away from this picture, just to also comment, because we're like kind of missing that bigger picture. But as far as what that looks like for me personally is I like to intermittent fast more between when I bleed and when I ovulate. And then I like to graze more after I ovulate and before I bleed. And I can pretty much like tell the day I ovulate by my hunger. Because like I said, like I'm just not that hungry. And then all of a sudden I am. So during my follicular phase, I don't really notice. And then I'm like, it's early in the morning and I'm like, oh, I'm hungry. And I'm like, it's probably time. And so that's like the beauty of it too, is the more you pay attention, if you're tracking your cycle, like Noah's pointing to, she's using the phone. You can even have apps for this. Then you're like, oh, I'm hungry. But my app says I'm not ovulating for another day. Well, guess what? Like you probably know better than your app,
Yes.
So it's quite possible that it's already happening if you're feeling that. And so learning to pay attention to these hormones that are running our systems is a really important part of what we're talking about as well, obviously.
And thank you for that, because coming from you as a fellow woman, we don't hear a lot about that. We hear, David Asprey that came with intermittent fasting. Intermittent fast. Wait, I'm a woman. My cycle is going to be different. You can't, So there is no one method that will fit me, and definitely not coming from a man who hasn't experienced a menstruation in his life, with all due respect. So I always go back to, hey, what is my body telling me? And the fact that you guys mentioned in Journey of Intrinsic Health, you mentioned to not be a chronic intermittent faster. At some point, I forgot which module was that. And that was an eye opener for me. It's like, okay, so I should listen to my own body, not someone else that tells me how it should be done from their
Well, I was
angle.
just about to bring that up, so I'm glad you did, is the diversity. So switching it up regardless of what you're doing. And this applies for men and women. I don't know if you have any male listeners, but I had oh good. I had a man go through the program as well who was an intermittent faster, and he's like, yeah, I intermittent fast. It works for me. I'm not going to try this grazing thing. Grazing, by the way, for those of you that aren't familiar, is when we start eating early in the day and we finish relatively early as well, but later than an intermittent fasting window where you're just eating in a very small window of the day. So he's like, didn't feel comfortable introducing grazing because he knew what worked for him, which was intermittent fasting, and he'd been doing it for a few years. And I'm like, hey, like, it's a time to experiment. You can always go back, like, just try it on. And so he did, and saw like significant gains and changes in his body the way that he wanted, just by eating more food over an extended period, because you're creating that diversity for the body to adjust to. So it's like metabolic flexibility is what you're really trying to create with this. And so just knowing that there's not one way to eat for everybody, but for all the time either. So really choosing to mix it up. So like I mentioned, during my follicular phase, when I'm typically fasting more, I'm still grazing a few days during that. Typically I'll graze on the weekends because it's just easier. And then intermittent fast on weekdays. Whereas during my luteal phase, that's post ovulation and before I bleed, then I'm grazing more and intermittent fasting less. And so just, again, I'm still intermittent fasting occasionally. And I typically just do it with what's convenient. So a lot of people are much more regimented in this than I am. And I applaud them. But for my lifestyle, I am a little bit more lax with it. And so I intermittent fast when it's convenient with my schedule. And then I'll graze more during those weeks.
I think like that, you see so much like, what is the best way of eating? What, is it this? Is it that? And just like, and this might be a good transition, but just a huge plug-in for Journey of Intrinsic Health. We learned so much information. However, it always came back to like, listen to your body. What is your body telling you? What is the best? And just because something worked for you at that time, or maybe like, there's certain, pieces that, yes, they work now, but maybe be curious and what happens if you switch it up. And like, there's so much, again, going back to the curiosity and just the value of turning things inward and really listening to yourself, that you can like learn and figure out yourself how to apply the information that you're learning.
Yeah.
It's so individual. Yeah.
So individual, so important.
Yeah.
So what if you're not in the productive years of your life? Like, so for those that are
like
pre, peri, and post menstrual,
have these bigger cycles, right? So, and to your point, Brooke, something might have worked during a certain time of our lives that isn't going to work at another time. So anytime you're not physically cycling, or if you have an irregular cycle during puberty or perimenopausal or menopausal, and even from birth control, you can, and during pregnancy, postpartum, all the things, all of the periods. So you can just point to the moon, or use the moon as your own cycle. So, many people call our menstrual cycle the moon cycle, and now you can start to see why. And so you can just use the moon as that guide. So during the full moon, assume that would be when you're ovulating. This is your summer, your connect, get out there. During, the waning moon, completion, focus, all of that. So you just follow the exact same thing, except you're paying attention to the moon as your guide rather than your menstrual cycle.
beautiful.
That makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Yeah.
And then there's the bigger cycles too, which you could also consider, which are, the earth cycles. So even more so in the summer, if you were ovulating, or if you're full moon summer is going to be like the most out there, whereas full moon in winter, you're going to be out there, you're going to be doing the things, but you also would be considering the bigger picture, the rest cycle. And so in all of these, there's layers of how much we're taking these energies on.
Yeah. And then the energy of your own life, like you were just saying, like with what, are you in puberty? Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Always incorporating it, and then being gentle with yourself, no matter where you are and no matter what cycle you're in and the earth is in, the moon is in. So
yeah. There's always that balance there of like, understanding this stuff, but again, not letting your own intuition of what you need rule it. It's just kind of the being aware of those energies.
That's right.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense. Do you find it easier, Jen, when you live in Hawaii, such a magical place of being one with nature? Do you find it easier to incorporate it now into your private individual wellness practice?
That's interesting. I think I'm finding it easier with age, just because the more I learn, the more naturally it comes. And I mean, honestly, I just started learning about this a few years ago, 5 years ago or so. And my thoughts as I was learning this is like, how come we're not teaching this to 14-year-olds? Like, this is like, and I'm very moved to create a program like this for them, because it's like, how did we not know this our entire lives? And there is a huge movement for this happening now of learning around the cycles and whatnot. And still, it's all written for menopausal and reproductive years and childbirth and whatnot. And so anyway, I feel really moved to speak to the younger generations about it. One thing I will say about Hawaii that is different, obviously, or maybe not, to most of the, at least continental US, is that our seasons are not as marked as, like, we don't have necessarily falling leaves. We have a rainy season and a sunny season. But so the seasons in that way do feel somewhat different. It is still a little bit cooler and breezier and rainier. But so, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just more my interest, yes, has made it easier. And the ability to be outside as much as I am has me like feel really in touch with nature. But I've always made it a point to do that no matter where I was. So so I don't know. I could see both. It may help, but also it is different. Our seasons here are different,
Yeah. So Brooke, no excuse to why you can't do that, right? There's no excuse.
Yeah. So I'm looking out at like a lot of snow on the ground.
Yeah.
Touch with nature.
I know. No, and honestly, like, that being said, like I think, again, journey of intrinsic health has just made it that much deeper for me to like really understand that it doesn't matter what the season is. Like it is important, and in many ways you can say even more so important to during the winter season to make sure you're getting outside. Just, it's like cold and flu season and all that virus season. So like, yes, get yourself in nature. That
microbiome boosted.
Yes, exactly.
Though, also to acknowledge the desire to, again, rest and be inside and be cozy, because my newsletter went out today and I was talking just about this, is like, it's so interesting how our culture has created winter as this time to like, do the shopping, have all the holiday parties, and January we're going to set resolutions. And it's like exactly opposite of our nature. Like, it is a time to be going within. It is like the darkest days of the year. They call it dead of winter for a reason. Like, this is a time for rest. And so I just want to acknowledge, like, of course it feels natural to stay inside. And if you want to go out and have a slow walk, instead of like, you don't need to necessarily go hike the highest mountain in order to get outside, right? So yeah, taking your time by the fire, but a little bit of time outside is obviously also wonderful as well. But understanding that it makes sense that it's natural to want to cozy up.
And that's 100%. So true. Yeah, because I know that for living here in our culture, wherever that is, Israel or the US, I feel that culture in general, slowing down and integrating is a loss of productivity, and it's almost like we can't slow down unless we are hurt, injured of some sort. Like there's got to be a really good reason why one wants to just stay home, take our time, read a book.
Well, and we often end up doing that to ourselves, making ourselves sick or hurting ourselves, not necessarily purposefully, but I think the body's like, take it easy. So we end up doing that so we can like get a second of rest. I have a friend who created a cool card deck called the 13 Holy Nights. And it's all about it starts the day, Christmas Eve, goes till the day after New Year's, and you're setting your intentions for the year ahead. It's really great. I'll send it to you, or I'll put it
I
in.
love that.
And share with people. But it's all about this idea of like stepping away from consumerism and into ritual during that time of the year when we may otherwise be, being told otherwise.
I love that.
Yeah. And we've talked about that on our podcast, pretty extensively. Yeah.
And it's interesting coming from the upper world. In our contract, there's 2 or 3 days that we get to take off when we're menstruating because it does affect our vocal cords. It gets swollen up.
Oh.
Yeah. And yet you don't see in a regular workplace, take time off, you're menstruating. Like, do I need to,
I think there are a couple of countries that are starting to create that, though. I was seeing that somewhere. I haven't looked deeper into it, but I should. But yeah, really good.
Amazing. Nice. Do we want to move on and talk a little bit about Journey of Intrinsic Health? And
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let me see. Was there anything else I wanted to tell you guys about?
Yeah. What else? Yeah.
Oh, just nutrition in general throughout the month, like to be having a lot of cruciferous vegetables, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, etc., to help metabolize excess estrogen anytime in the month. So just recognizing how important that is to help regulate our cycles. And then you'd asked me a little bit originally about seed cycling, which I am not an expert in, and so I can't like give you tons of information there, but I just thought I would mention it, is that there is something called seed cycling where you eat different seeds throughout your cycle. During the follicular phase, menstruation to ovulation, you want to have like ground flax seeds and pumpkin seeds, and then during the luteal phase, ground sunflower and sesame seeds. I'm just starting to get into that. Can't tell you more than that, but I find it interesting and fascinating. So maybe check that out yourselves. And then just making sure you're having like the proper progesterone and protein and whatever throughout the month. Like I said, I'll be doing cycles and spirals, so you can learn more about that then. And then I'm going to also send you guys a link to my bookshop because I have so many books about all of this. The Northrops, Christine and Kate Northrop, have a bunch of amazing books about this. Mindy Pelz, who you later on in the Journey of Intrinsic Health. Okay, so Kate is more about like how to create your business life around this. Mindy Pelz is amazing about fasting with your cycle. Alyssa Vitti in the Flow, hormones and whatnot, and Sarah Gottfried, hormones. Stacey Sims for working out with your cycle. And Whitney Mack has a program called Work Out Like a Woman, and I'm actually doing a live with her today when this comes out.
Oh.
So we're pre-recording this, but I'm doing it the day this comes out. So that is her program is like, it's an online program, and you learn all about how to work out with your cycle and more about the whole thing I was just talking about, seasons and moon and all of that. And I created a couple meditations for her program, which I sent to you guys for review. Share those with you guys as well here, so we can put those in the show notes. So we have a meditation for spring, summer, and one for winter, fall, so that you can listen to those during the different season, your internal season. And I have a discount code for Whitney's course, so I'll send you guys that too. So that's that program. And she's a personal trainer, and she's great. And yeah.
Amazing.
And then Journey of Intrinsic Health. So,
well, and real quick too, to back up that I can't wait also to hear more about your program when it comes out, because this information is so needed. And I really do think women are just like hungry for knowing this, like, because like you said, we have not been taught any of this. And
like I said, once I started delving into this, I was like, my bookshelf is, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's so much to know. And it affects every different thing. So whether it is all the things we're doing, whether we're working out or working or eating or resting, it's all the things. So yeah, I agree. I can't wait to. I want to like incorporate all the books I just listed. I'm reading them all. I want to incorporate them things. So
yeah, there's so much. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So
you're starting a new cohort, right? Tell us about that.
Okay, so the Journey of Intrinsic Health is an online program. It's an 8-week program for anyone to go through to learn about the 8 points of intrinsic health. That program, our cohort for Journey for the winter has already begun. And for the group immersion, we have 2 per year. Winter just started. The next one will be in September. You can sign up for it now. It starts in September. I have a discount code for that we'll also put in the show notes. And then there is, however, that is if you want to go through the program with a cohort of 8 people-ish. And then one-on-one, however, you can do anytime. So it's on demand. So if you wanted to go through the Journey of Intrinsic Health now, you can do that right now, today, get set up with a coach and start your program. That being said, I don't know how many of your listeners are already coaches, but we do have something called the Coach's Journey. And now Coach's Journey is what you two have been through. And this is to learn how to coach to the Journey of Intrinsic Health. And we also have 2 cohorts per year. And the first one of this year is starting, access begins next week on February 8th. And then coaching begins on February 22nd. So that one, we are still taking applications. There's just a small window left. And so, yeah, we'd love to encourage anyone who's interested in joining the Coach's Journey to look into that, sign up now. I'll send you guys the link for that. And we would love to have you join us if you are interested in Coach's Journey. So again, there's just 2 per year. The next one is the summer fall. That one you get access in July. It starts in August. It's done by November. But this one starts in February and we're done in June. So you have your summer. So yeah, that's Coach's Journey. And you guys can talk more about that. You've been in it. You're going through the Journey of Intrinsic Health, which I just described, where you're learning about the 8-point Journey of Intrinsic Health. But you're also learning how to support clients go through it, going through it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, like just the power in it, and especially as coming in it, like, yes, understanding how to coach through it, but also just the experience of actually doing it yourself, like, and having that as the experience, I think like allows you to just fully embody it. And then that alone can help you to coach it. But I do want to say that like the thing that I found the most powerful, because I was trying to think of this, I was like, okay, how can you sum up like really what is so different about that experience from like any other like health or nutrition program? Like, you can get knowledge from like the mind level, and it's like you're hearing all these things and it's like, okay, that makes sense. And especially just being in the health and wellness, it's like you can see all these different angles. And with, I know we're all like yoga instructors, and so understanding that knowledge too. But the beautiful thing about Journey of Intrinsic Health is that it was able to really connect all of the dots, and not just on a mind level of like, okay, like, I understand this piece and understand that piece and understand that piece, but it was like almost like a somatic experience as well. Like, it's like you really resonated like in your body of like, yes, this makes sense. And to me, like, that's where all of the power comes from, because it's not knowledge that you're like obtaining. It's almost like knowledge that you're remembering.
Yeah, we hear that a lot. You're like uncovering your intrinsic ability to heal. That's the
yes, exactly.
And the Coach's Journey is different because and Journey of Intrinsic Health is amazing, and people get a lot out of it. But in Coach's Journey, because you're learning how to teach it too, you go through, you hear the content once with the big group, then you hear it again in your small group, and you hear it again when you're going through one-on-one. And so you really get a chance to assimilate the information in a different way, that because there's so much content and there is like so much to know. To your point, it's connecting all the dots, and so hearing it a different way a few different times really helps us to to assimilate the information in a new way, I'd say.
Yeah.
I still use it with my clients all the time. I finish every session with an I am mantra and TIA for them. And I'm teaching them some of the content, with these beautiful 8 pillars of health that we talked about during the Journey of Intrinsic Health. I feel I want to share this information with more people. And so now when I give nutritional advice, it is no longer the clinical nutrition that other nutritionists possibly do. It is all of you within you, and this is how you engage your flow, and this is how you ignite your breathing, and this is how you play more, and this is how you connect more. So being able to now share it with my clients from a way of knowingness and a way of almost something I didn't expect to have such a huge impact on my life gives me such a compassion for my clients, and also a connection that hasn't been there before Journey of Intrinsic Health.
So good. So Noah was just listing, and if you haven't been to the program, you wouldn't know what she's talking about, but some of the 8 pillars, which are be, flow, fuel, connect, play, breathe, move, and rest. And so those are our 8 pillars. And fuel is the nutrition piece, which is not just about food, to your point. It is about the metabolic power of nutrition, but it's also so much more, and about the energy of the food that we're taking in, and how and when, and all of that as well. So yeah, thank you for pointing to that, Noah.
Highly recommend it. Both of us highly recommend it.
Glad it's working for our clients. We love to see it grow. So awesome.
Thank you. So is there anything else you want to share with us, Jen? Anywhere else they can find your work, Journey of Intrinsic Health? We'll put it in the show notes, but if you want to.
Yeah, my work is just at jennperell.com, and I'm on Instagram at Jenn Perell, and Spotify and SoundCloud, and I don't know, Pinterest, all the things. But I should help you in show notes. And then Journey of Intrinsic Health is journeyofintrinsichealth.com. And to learn about the coach's journey, which, like I said, that window is still open for this year's this season's cohort, is just a tab in Journey, which is the tab is called Coaching, and it's Coach's Journey. And I'm excited for that one to start soon. So yeah, Coach's Journey, and then my stuff. And I'm just so grateful to be here, and it's so nice to see you both and to see what you're growing. It's so fun. I'm glad to see this having had a little sprout out of Coach's Journey. It's so fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for being here, Jen.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, ladies.